Smash me. Hi, so it's June 10th and we are at the anti-Sharia rally basically here in Boston, Massachusetts. And of course we're going to report ask a couple questions to a lot of people, see why they're here and what actually they want to accomplish.
The Boston Marathon bombings, what compelled these two brothers, after being given so much? They were given housing, they were given education, they were given everything that they possibly could be given. Why did they bomb innocent Americans during the marathon of 2013? It's the Sharia law that it compels them to do that.
Act for America?
Yeah. Well, I participated in a couple of rallies basically here in Boston. I joined the basically. It was pretty fun, but yeah, I'll still an interview. So, what do you think is do you think Islam is an existential threat to the United States?
I think Sharia law is an essential threat. You know, there are many peaceful, loving Muslim Americans, and we're trying to protect them too. We're trying to protect American Muslim women also from Sharia law because, you know, these are 8th, 9th century laws, religious laws, that they don't fit into a modern day, you know, society like America. You know, we have one law, that is the Constitution, and, you know, that's what we follow here, and no religious laws should ever, you know, compromise that.
How do you think we should prevent Sharia law?
Well, for one, I definitely think that don't allow it to begin with, because it's a crime against humanity. You know, oppression of women isn't even a word. I mean, they throw gays off buildings. This is a known fact that Sharia law, you know, there is no room for homosexuality, and women just don't equate. You know, they're not equivalent to men, period. You know?
Don't gays and women and Muslims actually vote for Democrat policies which are more lenient towards
Muslim
immigration?
Americans do, and those are the ones that are welcome and loved and embraced here when they honor the Constitution. But if you're coming in from other countries and you're trying to impose your religious laws on American people, you have to expect some sort of repercussion for that. And nobody here wants violence. You know, like Antifa, they want violence. If we wanted violence, there would have been violence. Nobody wants violence. We want peace. We want peace in the world, but peace in the world is not going to happen by imposing religious laws in our country.
Well, if you look, for example, in Europe, basically women and gays were like the voting bloc for all those different parties who actually were lenient in their immigration policies, which allowed to bring in so many refugees and, well, Muslims in the first place that caused so much terror. And do you think that's the same thing that can happen in the United States?
That's exactly going to happen in the United States.
So
what's happening in the UK, it's just, you know, it may not be right around the corner, but that's what we're fighting against. We don't want that here. You see what's happening in the UK. There are actual no-go zones where, you know, British citizens can't go, you know.
Why did the UK citizens allow that in their country in terms of immigration?
I don't think they had any choice.
Well, it's democracy.
I don't think they had any choice in the UK. I think for a long time that they've had an influx in immigration, Muslim immigration, and slowly but surely, you know, their laws were being hindered to, you know, accommodate Muslims in the UK, and now they're acknowledging Sharia law there.
Well, basically, like, it's the same thing as Democratic Party. It's much more women and gays actually vote for Democratic policies in terms of immigration, and you want to protect them, but they actually vote for that. Like, how did you bring that?
See, you know, I don't think a lot of people are very educated. I don't think they educate themselves about Sharia law. I don't think that they know about Islam. I don't think that they know about the Quran. And I think if they did, I think that they would definitely not be agreeing to it.
But, well, we see the same trends across cultures in Europe, basically, that it's the voting blocks.
Most of those trends are happening, obviously, I'm sorry to say, but I think most of those trends are happening in the younger generation. Seems to me like children are getting indoctrinated in this country younger and younger. And even in middle schools now, they're teaching, it's good to educate, but at the same time, it's just, this is not the UK, this is the United States of America. We're not going to stand for it, period.
So you think there are like some differences between the United States and UK, basically, that can
There's a big difference. There's a big difference. There's a lot of differences.
Yeah. Well, in terms of
I don't want to offend anybody, but there's a lot of differences.
Well, you see that a lot of victimized groups under Sharia law are actually voting for the next step of Sharia law. Like it's really.
This is something that there's really no room for negotiating. It's either all or nothing. You can't be half in agreement with Sharia and half not. It's all or nothing. Either you abide by the Sharia or you don't.
Do you think there should be like immigration restrictions put in place, like Trump proposed to prevent Sharia law?
I don't think we should let anyone in this country that's unvetted. Period. I know what's happening in Syria is very sad. Also, I feel that wouldn't have happened, if not for Obama and some of the things that were done in those countries.
Do you think about basically the second wave immigrants basically for committing acts of terror?
There's people that really need, they're really refugees and they really need help, and that's why we should have established safe zones and come to a resolution for them. But there are also people in there that want to do us harm too, so what are we supposed to do? Put all American lives at risk, put all European lives at risk?
Well, you're restricting immigration basically, right?
Refugee and immigrating here as a legal citizen is a little bit different. But when you have hundreds of thousands of people pouring in over your borders and they're undocumented and unvetted, what do you expect?
Well, there's that other thing that is that like second wave immigrants basically are radicalized within the UK, within Germany, and within the United States and whatnot.
They get radicalized when they get to the UK too. We see American people that were born in the United States. Look at the Zanaya brothers. They were radicalized right here. But they were also refugees. They came into this country as refugees, and that's the things that we got for. That's the things that we got for welcoming refugees into our country. We got the Boston Marathon on us.
Yeah, but they were basically, they were better, they were okay, but yeah, they were not like terrorists.
Yeah, they were radicalized.
Yeah.
It's just the plain fact that our principles in the United States and their principles and their culture and religion clash.
Other principles based
It's
on
like
equality.
oil and vinegar.
Yeah.
They do not mix. They do not mix at all. And
But if you look, for example, at basically all those immigrants who came into UK and Germany as children, let's say, and they've been brought up in this liberal environment which was based on equality and like everybody's welcome, and in the end they were like, well, there's so many things like homosexuality that I don't admire. And it's like women's rights, and they're all dressing up really inappropriately, really untraditionally to them and to actually the West itself. Like if you, for example, ask Americans, they would not approve. Like, well, there's a lot of gray area, let's say.
There's so much gray area. That's what makes this such a complicated issue for everybody. Is there's no black and white. There's so much shady gray area in between. We don't want war. We all want peace. But in order to ensure peace here, first, if we can't have peace here, there's not going to be peace anywhere.
Okay.
And that's just a fact. You see how divided our country is right now, and it's not good for us. It's not good for the rest of the world either.
Do you think basically like both the parties?
Adding insult to injury is not going to help it.
What do you think is the injury?
Allowing thousands and thousands of unvetted, undocumented immigrants to pour in, because we're putting ourselves in major danger.
Yeah. Well, we are putting women and gays like in the first place in danger. They're the most unprotected, basically. And at the same time, you can see that, well, why Islam is incompatible is because there's a different ideology. It's not based on equality, it's not based on rights. We're giving rights to like anybody Basically, it's you know, the buff of warrior.
Yeah,
basically.
that's what it is. That's what it is. It's so hard to think over these people. And that's a fact. You know,
Do you think it's like
for women and for gays, Sharia law is not fair. It's not humane.
But it's a catch-22 because they vote for.
If we allow that into our country, we're setting ourselves back 100 years, 200 years for women and for gays. You understand? If we allow laws like that into our country, Sharia laws. So, what is Sharia law? You have to ask yourself first.
Yeah.
These men have the right to honor killings, okay, to mutilate their little girls, to marry off their daughters, their 9, 10, 11-year-old daughters. How is that American?
It's really masculine.
Yeah, how is this American? It's not American. It's a third world law, religious law. It has no place.
But that's a catch-22 because gays and women actually vote for those policies.
I know, I don't understand it because they're not educated. They don't know.
I think they're educated, but there's like
They're
something deeper.
educated, but I don't know what it is. I really don't. It's insanity to me. Like, you know, especially when I see gays that are in support of, you know, different. We're not against anybody. You know, this country, we're all supposed to stick together. We're all supposed to unite. But in order for that to happen, we have to maintain our Constitution because it protects everybody. It protects everybody. Sharia law doesn't protect anybody.
Look at them flooding the machine with their
Well, like, you come here to protest Sharia law worldwide, as you said?
No, I'm saying they're here to protest. I'm just here to, like, as an observer, to see, like, you know, some of them take it too far.
Yeah.
Like, I agree, some of them, like, on the right-wing side, take it too far with, like, Muslims and stuff. But a lot of them are just against the Sharia law, like, as in, like, the law in general. So, yeah, that's why they're here to protest, like I said, throwing gays off roofs, the gay concentration camps in Chechnya and stuff like that.
So we're basically like Sharia law worldwide, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a Muslim myself, and I don't really agree with it.
So you want like secularization or like something?
Yeah, because I feel like Islam is the only religion that has not like been brought up to modern times. Because if you look at like the dominated like Christian countries and dominated Jewish countries, they're expanding gay rights, they're expanding women's rights, and they're not really doing that as much in Muslim countries.
Yeah.
Like, it's not as much, but I'm saying some countries, like I'd say fairly moderate, but I say the majority of them are not doing that.
You think like there's a reason why they stay so traditional, or just like?
I think I don't think it has gone through that experience of time because if you know, like during the Middle East, during like the 1500s, during the Middle Ages, they were kind of like what the Europeans are today. They were like what the Europeans are today. Like they were like expanded, like a lot of like algebra, like all the maths and stuff. They originally came from the Middle East and Muslims, but the Muslims killed all their scientists, all their mathematicians because it was kind of gonna get in the way of the religion, and so that's what happened. And so that's why like we had our what do you call it, golden age. Yeah, we had our golden age, and now it's kind of like we kind of stayed the same. We didn't really look for progress, and I think that's the problem.
Like, what do you think is the progress essentially? Is it like just expansion of rights?
Because if you notice, the countries that have the most women's rights, that have the most gay rights, the most rights in general, are the countries that are well off.
Like it's like causality effect, or is it just? Do you think it's like causality respecting rights and then getting like this so?
No, it's because people challenged it, and then people challenged Christianity, people challenged the church, and That's how science basically expanded in the West. They were challenging the church. They said the sun went around the earth, when in reality the earth went around the sun. So basically, religion was challenged, and they kept adapting to modern times. I don't think Islam has done a good job of adapting to modern times.
Basically, like challenging the religious dogma.
Yeah, really challenging the religious document.
We don't stand with homosexuality, but we have homosexuals that stand on our side because of things like Sharia law that they stand against. Common things that you can come together on, which is what we're trying to find, the common ground. It doesn't mean I'm going to agree with everything that they believe in, and I've told them, the homosexuals who stand with us, you know, I'm not going to sit there and wave my American flag next to your homo flag, like, on purpose to, like, show support, because I don't support it. I don't support it. I'm a Christian. I'd be hypocritical to say I do, right? But the reason is, you know, the Bible teaches to be against homosexuality because it says homosexuals won't inherit the kingdom of heaven. It also says fornicators, adulterers, and all kinds of other sin leads you to hell. It doesn't just say homosexual sin. So that's just one thing the Bible mentions. Even in that same verse, it mentions other things that will get you to go to hell. So it's always funny how everything becomes about homosexuality, even when it's not about homosexuality. And you know, it gets a little annoying to have to always talk about gay rights when you try to talk about Sharia law.
And about women rights, basically, like, you know that Sharia law stones adulterers, and therefore we don't want this in the West, because, like, we want to basically allow women, you know, to be cheating, let's say.
Well, about women's roles, see, a lot of people think Christians even are very against women and women's rights and women's roles, but the fact is this, I think everybody has a place in the family. We're absolutely for women's rights. We don't think they should be covered up in the sense of this. It's good to have women covered up in this sense, right? If you're a good woman, you'll probably cover up somewhat anyway because you're a decent person. You're not trying to tempt men to look at all your body parts, because it's hard enough because we all like them, you know what I mean, who are straight people. And it does encourage us to look and lust, which isn't good. You know, it's not good. That's what the Bible teaches. You shouldn't lust. It's a sin. So, you know, in that regard, I understand where Muslims are saying they want women to cover up, but the way they take it and the rights that they exclude from women, they can't drive in Saudi Arabia, they can't vote, they can't do nothing. That's ridiculous. You know what I mean? But in a family, a woman and a man have a role to play, just like on any other team. If I'm on a baseball team, if I'm a bench player, it doesn't mean I'm not important, because what if the starter gets injured, right? I got to come in, I got to hold it down. But the point is in a family, I believe that a woman should be a housekeeper, not just in the sense of making sandwiches and keeping a house, but because you have a kid and you have a special connection between man and woman and child that a man and a child don't really have. And mothers are more nurturing by nature. I think mothers serve an important role in the family to be there for the children and raise them, especially during the early years where kids are like sponges. And it's important that you teach them the right things so you have a good family, so you install those principles into them, and so you have woman understanding. Like, I have a Dominican girl I'm kind of talking to, and, you know, they wouldn't think so because they say I'm racist, and she's a Christian. She believes that too, and she's okay with it because she understands it's not like, what's the word, misogynistic or anti-women's rights, sexist, you know, whatever they want to say. And that's what it is. If people accepted their roles and understand that women's role is equally as important, just different, what's wrong with that?
That's what actually Islam teaches, basically. Like, if you're a pious Muslim man, let's say, your path to, like, connection to Allah, let's say, is, you know, completely different from the way pious Muslim women should take, basically.
But also, it teaches complete oppression of women.
Yeah.
And it also has jihad all over the place, 109 plus verses of violence that literally talk about chopping off heads and limbs. So people would say you're racist. No, I'm like, Muslims aren't a race. You know, Islam isn't a race. Islam is supposedly a religion. So anybody from any race can associate with any ideology, with any religion, right? So how is it about race? You could use that same thing on to say that they're intolerant of Christianity and say, are you racist if you don't like Christians? No, because Christians are made up of all kinds of different races, right? So which race would you be racist against if you say, I don't like Christianity? No, you don't like Christianity, right? It doesn't mean you're racist. You could be a racist too, and then you'd be a prick, you'd be a jerk, right? I mean, but that's the idea of it. And I think there's a lot of misinformation, misunderstanding, and that's why we have all these discussions and clashes. Because a lot of times people don't put in the time to research things, to have an intellect, to be able to be subject matter experts and actually speak to things in an intelligent fashion.
Do you think the way to combat basically this existential threat of Sharia, or Muslims basically, is to go back to those traditional values, for example, in the West?
Say that one more time, sorry.
Like, the way to combat basically, like, this existential threat. Okay, can we recognize this as an existential threat to the West?
Sharia law?
Yeah, Islam.
Yeah, Islam is. Islam, most Muslims who are real Muslims will tell you that though they don't agree with the West. they tell you they want to wage jihad on the West constantly. They were infidels, they were non-believers, right? So I mean,
so should you like go back to traditional values, basically, like
the original volumes of values of the country? Yes, absolutely. This country was, I was just telling them earlier, this country was formed by Puritans and under Judeo-Christian value. Puritans came here from being under King Charles in England, and they weren't able to basically practice serving God the way that the Bible teaches them to serve God. So because of that, they felt like they could go to hell if they didn't get away from that and serve God, because they knew that was more important than serving some dictatorial leader, essentially, who was saying, you know, you got to worship God this way. And they're like, no, but you're not God. You can't tell us that. And so they came to America to establish a Judeo-Christian nation under God, and with God's values and principles instilled into the Constitution. That's why most of our founding fathers went to seminary school and were very big Christians. It's proven. It's a historical fact. And you know, a lot of times the left wants to rewrite history because they want to control the narrative and basically just lie. I mean, how many times have you seen fake news on CNN? Just the other day, CNN had to do a retract what statements they made. It's all over the place all the time. So
I would actually disagree with you that it's just about religiosity and like being able to practice your religion. I would see that for majority of history in Europe, including the divine ruler, basically was like a descendant of God. He was basically like having a divine blood or like noble blood. It was like a huge distinction between basically people who rule and people who not rule. I'm not saying like we should go back to that, but I'm saying that the power basically on the part of monarch was divine in a lot of sense, and the ideas brought by American Revolution were heretic to like the Europeans essentially.
Well, what's funny is there's all these ideologies, all these religions that teach about God. I don't see any of them besides Islam talking about chopping off heads. You know, they're all peaceful, even though they believe in false gods and false idols, in my view, and that's not good to do, and that will send you to hell too. They don't believe in all this crap about chopping off heads and chopping off limbs, and they're not out to wage jihad. You don't see any Buddhist monks committing terrorist attacks. You don't hear of any Christians throwing homos off roofs, but you hear of Muslims doing it, and you hear of Muslim knife attacks and gun attacks. And what people don't understand about the gun issue is, with guns, how are you going to stop the terrorists? Remember in the UK with all these people, you see scenes all the time of unarmed UK police officers trying to chase guys with knives, and they're like, you can't get too close, we don't have arms. I'm sorry, if you got a guy running with knives, if you have a gun, you don't want to shoot people, but if he's going to kill everybody, if you have one gun, you stop them and you save all those lives. And if you just keep the guns in the hands of the criminals and the terrorists, then how does the law-abiding citizen fight back in a country where your governments have, you know, basically let you down? They're letting you down. They're letting in the enemy. You can't trust in them. Our troops are fighting abroad. It's our job as a free citizenry to stand up against all enemies, foreign and domestic too. You know, and we got to protect our homeland, just like you would in Russia, just like you would anywhere. And I think anybody is a nationalist. You know, you see the Mexicans coming here waving the Mexican flag, and it's okay for them to be a nationalist. But if we wave our American flag here, suddenly it's bad to be a nationalist because we're oppressive and it stands for bad things. And I try to tell them, you know, we freed the slaves. The Republicans under Abraham Lincoln in the Emancipation Proclamation freed the slaves, and the Democrats were the ones who were anti-civil rights movement. They were the ones who were starting the KKK, the Jim Crow laws, and originally the KKK was actually formed to go against white conservatives. You know that?
Yeah.
And then it moved into going after the black people, which was obviously wrong. But that was Democrats, and then they pretend it was Republicans who were racist back then, and they pretend that Republicans are racist and conservatives are racist today. It's a false narrative. It's lies. And
well, it's simplistic to say that Democrats are the true racists. That I hear like.
I don't think every Democrat's a racist either, but I think that you know, no rational person would, because why would they be racist because they believe in bad things that I don't agree with? That doesn't mean they're racist, right?
I was asking people today about like Catch-22 situation here in the West, basically with, you know, all this expansion of women's rights and gay rights and everything else that you see like under the sun. Rights to everybody. You know, essentially all those people, you know, not just the Democratic platform, but by their ideology, by their temerity, vote for, you know, those successful threats like bringing in more Muslims and bringing in more Mexicans and bringing in like all the different ideologies and nationalists essentially. That would be incompatible with the West for like generations to come, basically. Yeah. So you basically gave freedoms so that somebody else will usurp them in the future. Is it the right statement, you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about freedom, man, and it's all about not letting these people in that have these ideologies because they're a danger to society. It's indisputable when you know what Islam teaches, and to ignore the facts is what the liberals love to do. And if they paid attention, they wouldn't think we're Arabs, they would understand we're anti-Islam.
Why do you think gays and women vote so much or sympathetic so much to bring more Muslims?
It doesn't make sense. I think they're just misinformed or not informed.
Or maybe they're just religious.
Who?
Like, there are all those minorities and all those like groups of people essentially who are Democrat, they believe this is not something you can prove essentially, like until it comes, okay? So the theory is that I developed, and a lot of people believe that it's like the same processes or the faculty of the mind basically to construct, you know, this like beliefs and systems of beliefs essentially to believe that Muslims are just like us, and if all of us just were brought here, have like this equal opportunity and equal rights and equal everything, equity essentially, it would be like all the same essentially.
Yeah, and
But
I mean,
you think it's true?
I wish that you could bring Muslims here and give everybody equality and all that, but it's not all that simple because of the ideology that they teach and what they're really going for. They're waging jihad. And not everybody's waging jihad because not everybody knows what the Quran teaches, and maybe some Muslims are newer Muslims than others and are learning things. Just like as a Christian, if you don't know all the Bible, you're going to learn how to be a better Christian. But again, when you learn to be a better Muslim, it's dangerous because of all the verses of violence that teach you to wage jihad, chop off limbs, fingers, kill those who disbelieve. And if you don't go and attack the people who disbelieve, then they'll wage jihad on you as a Muslim, which is why you see Muslim wars all over the place, constantly.
Hey, the way to combat Muslim Sharia is white Sharia.
No, absolutely not.
Well,
So it was good. Good meeting with you. Good interview. Thank you.
Will you be against Sharia or for Sharia? That's the question.
Very, very definitely against Sharia law, as it's particularly as it's being pushed for by the Wahhabists, the Salafists, the Deobandis, all of the, the extremist Islamist groups.
Okay, would you be like against immigration from the Near Eastern countries?
I'm not. I want immigration to be. I'm for immigration, but I want immigration to be on our terms. I think we should vet people. I think we should, have a merit-based system. So the people who are most willing to embrace our values, American values, the constitutional values, the idea of basically live and let live. That you don't impose your religion or your values on other people. Those values. I want as many of those people to come in as possible.
Like American,
Yeah, pretty much.
Not Islam first, not like Muslim first.
No, because you do have that problem of pan-Islamic ideology, where some of these groups appeal to young, disaffected Muslims, and they think, no, you're not an American, you're not British, you're a Muslim first. You need to come over to ours.
Well, what about basically like second generation immigrants who basically are much more radicalized compared to their parents? Like if you see all the terror basically happening in all the European countries or even here, like a lot of perpetrators basically are second generation.
Yeah, you do
Muslims.
see that. You do see a lot of the violence that we're seeing in Europe come from people who are born and raised in those countries, as opposed to people coming in through the refugee programs. And there is a risk with the refugee programs and with immigration. You don't want to add more to the problem. You don't want to bring in more radicals posing as refugees like a Trojan horse. That's why you need vetting to keep the problem from getting bigger, so that you can tackle the existing problem of people getting radicalized here at home.
Why do you think they're radicalized?
It's there's a multitude of different factors. Number one is you get people that grow up in we have a lot of sort of, I guess you might call it a sort of cultural void here in a lot of the West, where because of the increasing secularization of society, a lot of young people growing up don't feel like they have a lot of meaning in their lives. Some of them turn to religion, especially if they have a cultural background that is deeply ingrained with religion. Some of them turn to ideologies and politics. But so that's also why you see the rise of Antifa. They also fuel from that same source of a lot of disaffected young people, a lot of middle-class people that have never really struggled or suffered, but they still don't feel like their lives have any meaning, and so they turn to these grand causes to sort of give themselves purpose and give their lives meaning. And that's also what happens with some of these like second-generation Muslim immigrants, that they feel like they grow up in a middle-class background. They're not devout Muslims at all. They drink, they they go around partying and stuff, but then they run into
something clicks.
Yeah, it's not just something clicks. It doesn't happen on its own. Sometimes they get radicalized by propaganda on the internet, but that's not the entire thing either. A lot of what happens is you've got organizations like the Islamic State, but more often it comes from places like regimes, Saudi Arabia, Qatar. These regimes funnel money into well-established NGOs and networks like the Muslim Brotherhood and others that then fuel the money into radicalized mosques and prop up hate preachers and people
and universities too.
And universities, and they will often. And it's a difficult situation because they will often disguise this as charity work. They will often disguise themselves as moderate Muslims, which you got to be really discerning about that, because as we saw here in the rally today, there are some like people who, because there's that sort of Trojan horse effect going on, they assume that all moderate Muslims they're just radicals in disguise. Well, no, because there are real constitutionalist Muslims out there, and there's a lot of them. So you can't just assume that because someone's Muslim that they're automatically an extremist in disguise. But there are extremists in disguise. So the best you can do is engage people, and hopefully their true views come out.
Well, do you think basically that the first point, I think, why Muslims actually radicalized in the West, well, compared to like previous, well, there were not that big of a problem between like the West and the East essentially before, well, let's say 100 years ago.
Yeah.
The Muslims who were coming in, for example, France, were not committing the same acts of terror. But you will see that right now the West basically, like as you said, this cultural void or decline, essentially those young people who would go out party and sleep around, basically, they'll see that there's just a moral degeneration. There's a degeneracy essentially that is in the West, like not in terms of homosexuality or like women's rights, but essentially something that is rotten to the core and is existing in the West. That's why basically you would see that.
And that's why they don't want. And that's why a lot of these people, they would rather radicalize than assimilate. They don't want to assimilate because they see the West as degenerate. And they see the West as decaying. They think it's dead. Of course they don't want to latch onto that which they see as a sinking ship.
Yeah. But at the same time, you could say, like, I, for example, sees a sinking ship. I wouldn't go in jihad, okay?
Yeah.
Because I'm a Muslim. Yeah. But I would see basically that it's really, how they say, a nuance, okay? In like Young Turks, for example.
Yeah.
Like, that there are so many things actually go into existence other than just bringing in Muslims.
Oh, yeah.
Already with them, well, you can see like a certain generation.
Yep.
It can be independently like radicalized, and you may not want to censor information, okay?
Yeah.
From like people, you may believe that the truth is like the highest value here.
Yep.
That you may believe is what like keeping people from killing each other because of their ignorance or bias, as the liberals say, uneducated.
Yeah.
But people are very educated who actually go on jihad. They have studied. They have studied.
And they're not crazy either. They're not crazy. Everyone assumes that they're madmen. They're not. There have actually been some studies done on, I think it was on inmates, on people that were, caught plotting terrorism, and they had psychological evaluations. These people are not crazy. They're very sane. They just they might have what you might consider to be like crazy beliefs. They might like the 72 virgins, the idea that I kill myself and I go to paradise. But if you believe that, it's extremely rational to do so.
It's not only extremely rational to do so for 72 virgins. It's actually like a modern invention, okay?
Yeah.
For like teenage boys, okay?
Yeah. It's also I believe from what I've learned about some of particularly the things that are pushed forward by the Salafists, the Wahhabists, the Deobandis, what these ideologies preach is that the only way to ensure your place in paradise is to die in martyrdom. That's the only way.
Yeah.
If you are just a normal Muslim and you live your life, even if you are the most pious Muslim imaginable, if you die of any other cause like of old age or disease or something like that, even if you were the most pious Muslim,
you have no value to Allah.
Yeah, Allah might damn you anyway, just because he was in a bad mood that day.
It wasn't just a bad mood. If you read the Quran, basically like, there is no value for Islam or Allah, basically like having this small jihad at home.
You got these very collectivist ideologies within Islam that
Do you believe it's more collectivist than the U.S.?
No.
Like we're here grouping people like how they're white or male or black or whatever, like by the sexuality. Like we're the same way collectivists.
There's a lot of collectivism out there. I'm saying what I define as collectivist is an ideology that puts the group before the individual. So basically, it's saying that if you're not essentially willing to sacrifice yourself for the group. If you're not willing to like do everything for the
Are
group.
you sacrificing yourself for Muslims or sacrificing yourself for Allah? Like
That's actually an interesting distinction, and I do think it's an important one. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what the Wahhabists, the Salafists, or the Diabatists
well,
would say about
they
that.
see basically like this is how we, for example, if you're a libertarian, you would argue, well, it's all about an individual basically, how he, tries to achieve prosperity or like wealth or like supporting his family. Okay, like the same thing for Muslims, but they just have a different value for like what individual should achieve essentially.
Yeah.
It's not like a pious Muslim is like the one who's giving to the whole community essentially. They'll be collectivists essentially. Like your values in the community. No, your values for like this abstract flying God essentially for Allah, who you cannot picture basically for your like bias, following the religion essentially that not to commit suicide for the name of Allah. It's not a collectivist thing, and that's why a lot of the second-wave Muslims actually core individualists in a sense, call the Burdatsu, for the environment. They realize that, it's not for like Muslims, living in the U.S. That's a myth. For liberals essentially, they sacrifice themselves for this like they're God.
Yeah.
Like you have an idea of like the biggest virtue and the biggest good. That's their idea, okay?
Yeah.
And they are able to commit different acts of terror basically for it. Like there's not just other way around it, other than ban Allah or ban Muslims themselves. Like what do you think?
I don't think that would be. I do it. I almost hate to admit it, but that would work. But it would be extremely messy. It would just, oh man.
Yeah, right.
That is not the road that I want to go down, if at all possible. Because it would stop the terrorist attacks.
Yep.
But that's not a road that I want to go down if there's any other option. Because I come from a Catholic background, a really pretty traditionalist, hardcore Catholic background, and I know my history. I know my U.S. history, and we used to not have the guarantee of freedom of religion in the United States. Back before we were the United States, back when we were British colonies, most of the colonies were under the control of Puritans, of Puritan Protestant Christians who banned Catholicism. You were not allowed to be openly Catholic. People like me who had to practice our religion in hiding. So knowing that history and knowing that when you give the state the power over people's religion, what happens is that different religious groups will then compete for power over the state. I do not want to cross that Rubicon.
However, like, would you say if you see the problem is like the spread of Wahhabism from Saudi Arabia or from like, Iran, who's another big sponsor of like, this jihad.
Yeah, Khomeiniism. Yeah.
Would you basically like be willing to, invade those countries and destroy, like, cut off the head of, the snake that's destroying the West?
You do have to, at the very least, you either have to dismantle the organizations like the Muslim Brotherhood in order to cut off that source of funding to the hate mosques and the hate preachers, or invading and occupying those countries would be very costly, and I would be very distrustful of our ability to do it right.
Okay.
Just looking at the way Iraq was handled.
But there were no like religious centers basically that were sponsoring. Well, yes, you can say some Hussein was supporting of like terrorists, especially like if like asking them to come in for seeking refuge. But it's not like on the same level as Saudi Arabia and Iran, especially right now.
Yeah.
Or like for 10 years, let's say. Like, if you basically want to combat the problem, there is no other way than invading those countries and actually like just dismantling those structures completely that are leading, those organizations in the West that are actually like trying to, radicalize people. Is there?
It would be. I'm afraid it would be a quagmire. If you like ideally, if we were essentially sort of like almost like an empire, if we had top-down control, and if we were efficient about it, and if we were all united in that purpose, then theoretically, I think if you did want to go down that extreme route of invading, occupying, and completely dismantling those systems, you could do it, but I don't see the political will to do that.
There is actually other way to dismantle them, okay? Hear me out. Nuclear blast. On Mecca. Seriously. Would you consider that? Just get free of terror completely, okay?
Yeah, nuke the Middle East. No, the thing
It sounds crazy, right?
It's a large area. Now, granted, the population centers are actually pretty dense because there's a lot of desert there that's pretty much uninhabited. However, you'd have to freaking radiate the entire area, and I don't know how that. That's.
What about the mother bomb that was dropped on like Afghanistan? You know?
Again, you need a hell of a lot of those bombs. You need a hell of a lot of those bombs.
Well, you just like, well, we already know who's like perpetrating everything. Well, Trump went into like Saudi Arabia to shake hands.
I kind of like what he's doing with you know about the Qatar situation right now.
Yeah.
He's basically got all of them isolated in the Qatar. I like that. Divide and conquer, basically.
Well, there can be like a revival, like a phoenix of this like whole Muslim ideas actually, as a consequence of like.
I am. What I would hope for is to replace as much as I hate despots, as much as I hate these frickin' totalitarians like Saddam Hussein and Muammar Gaddafi, they kept the jihadists under control.
He wants basically secular leaders in the Middle East.
Secular dictators are better than theocratic dictators.
Which is like Iran and Saudi Arabia right now.
Yeah.
Democracies.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting, man.